So to my viewers, I want to welcome you to my next episode. Today my guest is Professor Vaidyanathan. He's a very, very well-known finance and economics person in India. He has had a distinguished career as a professor at IIM Bangalore. I have spoken in his class and met him many times, interviewed him. We've been friends, colleagues, and known each other for a very long time. We are presently involved in putting a book together jointly on what are the various catastrophes, scenarios, and what are the various problems that might happen in India, which people need to wake up and notice, because I think we very quickly get complacent. Every time we win a cricket match, we think that no more problems left. So life is more than just pageantry and cricket and pop culture. There are serious things happening. And so I'm delighted to honor you and welcome you back, Professor Vaidyanathan, to my show. I'm hoping we will talk about a number of issues, serious issues facing the economy. Welcome, Professor Vaidyanathan.
Thank you, Rajiv. It's always a great pleasure to interact with you. I think it goes back to roughly maybe 15-20 years. And
yes.
Again, I am very delighted to listen to your views and read your articles, and you have always been what I would rather call a inspiring guru for most of us. Thank you very much.
I think you've actually opened my eyes and given me a lot to think about, because your understanding of the Indian civilization and how the ancient links with the modern is something you have done very well, and your studies on Jati and so microeconomics and so on is absolutely fantastic and path-breaking, and I'm honored to collaborate with you. So I wanted to start our conversation by discussing the global situation, because everybody reads in the newspaper, there is this bomb attack, and then this China is putting this guy leading in some race against the West, and then there is this Western stuff going on and all. So I thought that it would be a good way to start before we come on India, to get your perspective on what do you think is happening in the global economy? What are the mega trends and changes with Europe, with America, with China, and so on? So could you give your perspective, please?
You see, essentially what is happening is, very quickly, in 1990, G7 used to have roughly 51% of the global income, global GDP, what we call in economics, gross domestic product, adjusted for purchasing power parity. These are IMF figures. Yes. In 1990, which is not very far, in the sense last, say, 25 years. And around 1915, the G7 has got only 35%. In 1990, the emerging economies, which are primarily India, China, Brazil and Indonesia, plus other countries, they had something like 35%. In 2015-16, they are having something like 51%. And the forecast suggests that G7 will be having something like 25% in another 4 or 5 years, which means the remaining will be 75%. So this is the crux of the issue, what one can loosely call the decline of the West, which started in 1820 because of colonialism as well as industrial revolution. I think a 200-year cycle is coming to an end in 2020, from 1820 to 2020. The famous study of Angus Madison suggests till 1820, India and China were having more than 50% of the global GDP every century. And actually he puts it very nicely, these are not emerging markets, these are re-emerging markets. They are retrieving where they were. So it's strictly an Anglo-Saxon crisis. It's not a global crisis. That's one dimension of the problem.
So can I just ask a clarification here? Yeah?
Yeah.
But in the G7 we include Japan, but that is not Anglo-Saxon.
No, Japan issue is separate. We will come to that actually.
Okay.
Now G7 has become G20. That's something very interesting. They don't talk about G7 anymore. And as I put it, when you are in crisis, you increase the size of the group because the per capita suffering will come down, right? So they have included India, China, Brazil, everybody into G7. But that's not still a cohesive group, because still the main dining table G7 is only sitting. Our Indian Prime Minister and others are given a stool and asked to sit in the side, primarily. And so what happened is, if you look at the history of last 2000 years, the declining powers are more dangerous, extremely, because they don't want to leave their seat. Nobody is going to leave their seat just like that. So they would look around and try to get opportunities, methods. And unfortunately, we have not internalized this fact that the decline of G7 is more or less what one can call final. That is one dimension of the issue. Other dimension is, there is a civil war raging in Europe, and I think it will spread to US also. The civil war is essentially against not Christianity and Islam. That's only a side show. Primary show is Islam and what is called, quote unquote, modernism. Islam hates modernism. Modernism in the sense of acceptance of premarital sex, acceptance of family planning, acceptance of homosexuality, acceptance of various what one can call heretic things. Now, in pure form, Christianity is also against all these things. But Christianity is not in a position to wage a war. It is trying to have more number of followers in Africa and other places. But Islam is extremely angry about it. And the treatment of women, modernism is also. So it wants to establish in clear terms a caliphate in Europe. They are not having any two views on that. They have expressed it in various ways that we should have. And recently Turkish PM has also mentioned that Turks have to play a very important role in civilizing the, quote unquote, civilizing the Europe. So they are having, so this is one type of a conflict which is taking place, which will sap the energy of Europe. The economy of Europe will get further.
Yeah, so I want to here ask you a question regarding Islam. Now, the Islam's fight is also with India, because India, the two big fights they had, one was this Ottoman Empire, Turkey is the inheritor of that, which was a fight against Europe, and the other was the Mughal Empire, which was a fight against India. Now, both of them got defeated, but the Muslims want to reclaim it back. So I think that it is not only a fight against Western modernity, it is a fight against all the infidels and heathens of the world. The biggest opportunity happens to be these two, because you see, Europe is right in their proximity and they have a large amount of immigrants in certain countries, and that's a good, those are sleeper cells. They also feel that the population of Islam is more, if you look at the world population of Islam, Pakistan, then India, then Bangladesh, then Indonesia, these are the majority of the whole Muslim world, population-wise. So the people who are dreaming the Caliphate and Darul Islam and all that, they are thinking of this as a front also. So we should not feel that India is safe while Europe is vulnerable. My feeling is that while Europe is vulnerable, USA may be not as vulnerable as we think, because there is also a very strong anti-Islamic move here that is not going to sort of take it. There is both sides, but the anti-Islamic people are going to sort of hit back, and America has a history of kind of vicious, brutal warfare when it required. So, if there's one country that may drop a nuclear bomb on, some Arab country, if there were a 9/11 with some kind of a dirty bomb, it is not unrealistic that the US may drop a nuclear bomb on those guys. It may happen. It is not a scenario you can completely eliminate. While I don't think the Europeans will do that. I mean, the Europeans probably will talk and blah, blah, like that, be a little mixed up. Maybe some guy in France or some person, right-wing guy will come up somewhere and do it. But I think that before you will say that, okay, the front line of Islam is Europe and then next comes America, I think you have to think about India also as a front line that Islam is fighting. And you see a lot of these rabid Muslims in India also, they are talking same kind of stuff. I would say the only place that has actually taken aggressive action against Islam proactively is China. I mean, China has taken some bold actions. They banned some things. I was told they banned the name Muhammad, you can't have, and things of that sort. So, others are sort of wanting to fake a democracy or a fake an intellectual freedom and freedom of religion and thought and all that. China has got no problems with that. They are saying if it doesn't suit us, we're going to get rid of you. So, what do you think of the Islam war vis-a-vis Europe, vis-a-vis USA, vis-a-vis India, vis-a-vis China? Because you have to look at all of that.
No, from the Islam point of view, Europe is a low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
For the simple reason, last something like 40 years, Europe has moved away from Christianity. One,
yes.
They are not anchored in Christianity much. And they have also become more what you may call liberal and left, which unfortunately is totally identified with radical Islam today. Left is more radical Islam. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and other things, the European left is, and much of the Europe has lost the will to fight. In US still there is a huge group of people who have the will to fight, who want to fight. But unfortunately Europe has totally sapped of its energy to fight. So from that point of view, for Islam, Europe is a low-hanging fruit. And it will sap the economic condition of the Europe. Europe has to spend. See, today, as one of my friend in Paris was telling, he has to always look behind his back when he goes to a supermarket or when he visits a music hall or when he goes to a pub. I lightheartedly asked him whether left side of the shoulder or right side of the shoulder. He said, Professor, don't joke. Because the situation is really, you find, he says he has never seen armed policemen in museums, in parks, in public places, in many of the cities of Europe. Europe is already in a civil war, whether one likes it or not. And there is something like 10,000 every day is entering and another 1 million is waiting outside. So, Europe is the main battleground, and I am reasonably certain in the next 3 to 5 years, US has to send its troops to Europe. There is no other way. And countries like India also will be asked to send to Europe. I do not know what...
It could either be, I think it will happen, the war with Islam will have to escalate from the US. But there is a scenario which says go send the troops to Europe, and there is another scenario which says join Israel and send the troops to the Middle East. Because that also is a possible scenario, is to kind of be more aggressive where the ground of the whole battle is, where the headquarters of the whole battle is, which is the Middle East. And this business of Iran and getting Sunnis against Shiites, that Trump is trying to play that game. When he went to Saudi Arabia, he's trying to bring a combination of Sunnis to fight Shias, because the idea being, the strategy being, get Muslims to fight Muslims, sort of whatever it takes, and keep them busy fighting. You supply weapons to them and they fight, destroy each other. So I think another player in this war against Islam that we have to also discuss is Israel. I think Israel is a very important player in this war against Islam, because as long as there is Israel, the war cannot be totally exported. The war has to remain in their home countries because of the physical existence of Israel.
Yes, that is true. But if you go back in history, almost all the conflicts in the last 2000 years were centered in Europe, actually. Even though much of the problem is arising out of the Middle East, but they were all shifted to Europe. Whether it is 100 years war or whether it is First World War, all the wars actually. Because Europe is in a, what you may loosely call on a powder keg today.
Right.
It's lost its moorings and it's having tremendous amount of economic crisis, and unemployment rate is phenomenally high in Europe. And the states, northern Europe states are not able to sustain their, the social security and other things. And Greece is one example only of how much of the suffering. US has to land its troop in Europe to defend.
So do you feel that, since we're discussing Europe's economic problems, do you feel that it is caused by Islam, or do you feel that it is also caused because Europeans are not competitive on the world stage with lower cost manufacturing from China, that because of they lost their colonies, that's another scenario, that they lost their colonies of cheap labor, and they are not able to do the cheap labor work in the colonies anymore, and they are not able to compete against USA, Japan, and now China. Besides Islam, is that also a problem for the demise of Europe?
You are correct. If you look back, actually, the country which did not have many colonies is Germany.
Yes.
In Europe, Spain, Portugal, UK, France, everybody, Belgium, everybody had colonies. The country which did not have colonies is the only country which is sort of sustaining itself on a high level compared to others. So loss of colonies, one. Second is, very important is, Europe has lost completely its family system. That is another major thing.
Yes.
And demographically it is declining. You see, in 1920, First World War time, you will be surprised actually. Every fourth citizen of the world was a European. Europe had 25% of the global population in First World War time. And today it has got hardly 10%, and it is expected to become 2%. Most of the European countries, Northern Europe particularly, the reproductive rate is less than 1, actually. And Merkel thought one way to solve the issue is to bring these people.
Yeah, that is also...
in terms of particularly what you call brown collar work. You know, the work which doesn't require too much sophistication.
Right.
And Rajiv will be very surprised to hear, in 2001, there was a move by then Chancellor of Germany to bring a lot of Indians to Germany by giving green cards. It was in 2001. If I remember, it was Brandt, he was the Chancellor. There was such a hue and cry by the Bavarian group, the Christian Democratic Union, by Joseph Strauss, that Inder cannot come and replace our Kinder. That was the slogan in 2001. They prevented the whole scheme to deny Indians access to Germany, green card. And now they have got all these Pakistanis, Syrians and Moroccans who Indians at least would have gone and did their work properly in information technology and kept at home. That's all. But these people are... So, Europe demographically is shrinking, and family is also getting affected, both in Europe and in US, actually. For instance, 40% of the births in some of the countries are out of wedlock. It's a huge crisis, actually. Single parent family, they call it.
Yeah, but it's also the birth problem is also there in Russia.
Phenomenal. Russia as well as Japan.
Yeah.
I'll give you one unbelievable statistic. If today 100 Russians are there, in 2020, hardly 3 years down the road, there will be only 85 Russians. Russia is declining demographically very severely. And Putin is shouting every time actually that we are shrinking. Japan is also shrinking. Every census of Japan they announce so many million people are less. And Japan has got additional problem to some extent. Japan doesn't want migrants. Japan doesn't encourage migrants at all into the island. And they are not having, and Japanese girls are not getting married anytime sooner.
Yeah, but even Russia does not want a large number of immigrants.
Correct. Same thing. Russia doesn't want, China doesn't want, Japan doesn't want. So these are the type of issues which are facing us, and unfortunately I think we are not adequately geared to look at these issues on a global perspective.
You see, the thing is that the previous government in India was ideologically misinformed and ideologically not interested in Bharatiya civilization. They were not interested in that. The new government theoretically are interested, but I do not know if they have the machinery, the intellectual leadership I don't know if they have studied the Kurukshetra properly. I don't know if they are just looking for quick solutions. I don't know if they are complacent and taking it for granted that, everything will be fine. I mean, I don't see robust, long-term, solid, professional investments coming from the government that are about the civilization. I go around 4 times a year to India. I go around meeting everybody I can, all the appointments I'm able to get. I see a lot of nice talk, but I think that when it comes to action, it's on their peripheral vision. It is not something that there is a big thrust that says we got to solidify the mother culture, the foundation, in order to be able to do all these things. There is no training program that says when foreign people come, we are going to give them training on our culture and our sensitivity. And there is no training of Indian journalists, even Indian media, even Indian foreign service. I don't think that the Indian government has really decided that this is a strategic area.
Correct. I agree with you. See, you have put in effort from 90s, something like 25 more than
Yes.
that, right?
Yes.
But you do find a slightly, improvement or a change.
Yes.
But
Yes, I do.
not necessarily at the government level, but at the society level.
Yes.
You have sort of millions of people,
Right.
youngsters,
Yes.
who feel that what you are telling is correct and this is the
Correct.
direction. I think that is how the society will move. Maybe we require in a fashion, I would say we require something like 1,000 Rajiv Malhotras floating around the country. It might happen, not today, maybe over a period of time. What I want to say is, see, ours is a very, very I shouldn't use that word, too strong a word, slothful society.
Yes.
More than that, slothful government.
Yes.
Actually, you see the difference, Rajiv. In Europe, government is organized, society is disorganized. In India, society is organized, government is disorganized. So you have the work of people like you are moving, in a direction the society, and this is what slowly will impact the government. I'm very sure. Today it is not, having any clue how to go about, because the bureaucracy, the judicial system, the entire, paraphernalia is traditional. You discuss with them so much about our Indian culture, Indian rootedness. He will call one deputy secretary and he will call his assistant and he will call his head clerk and he will think, yeah, very good, very important, sir. Civilization is very important.
Yeah.
Right? Kal dekhenge. So this is
And then he'll invite you. He'll invite you to his house for lunch. He will give you all the symbolic courtesies.
All the things.
All the
And
symbolic
then
courtesies.
Kal dekhenge. You are taking very good point, sir. Excellent point. And this to be right. So my point is, slowly, some movement is there.
Yeah.
Some development is there.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to wait. You are far ahead of your time, but still, you have done a remarkable job in terms of creating what I may loosely call a environment or a ecosystem, which is putting pressure at various places today. People are questioning, which wouldn't have happened in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what now? My question is, why did India's GDP fall? After all, we thought, new government has come. They are putting so much into investments and growth, and for a while it seems the GDP went up. And then there is demonetization, so we thought now it will actually help the economy. But why did the GDP fall, in your opinion, in India?
GDP, if you ask me, actually, the fourth quarter it has fallen. It's not annual, right? We are still, above 7% in that range, actually. And there will be fluctuations. The demonetization did have an impact on the fourth quarter results because of the impact it has created on what you may loosely call the small business, and informal and unorganized groups and other things, who constitute roughly 50-55% of the economy. I would say that our economy is still robust and still very, very active. The thing is, lot of expectation is regarding the government, which I think is not called for actually. If you ask me, our economy is growing in spite of the government, not due to the government. the lesser the government. As the famous old saying of Reagan, you might remember the 7 famous words, government is not a solution, government is a problem. So, the lesser the government, it would be actually more appropriate and better, right? That is not happening actually.
So
One.
why?
Second is,
Yeah, please continue.
there are certain very good, well-intentioned suggestions which were taken up initially. For instance, this creation of a Mudra Act in order to facilitate these small and medium-sized businesses, which are the engines of our economic growth, and that has not come through. There is a huge amount of turf war going between what you might loosely call the, RBI, Finance Ministry. So, would not, immediately conclude our economy is not doing well or anything. It is doing well actually. And one thing is we are much more transparent than China. Kindly remember, China's numbers are not easily reliable. Every 15 years, like every communist regime, they revise their old slogans. They say that 1 million were killed and then 10 million were killed, like that. Their GDP numbers are not very reliable, and their banking system is in very bad shape. So, as a complete country, it is doing well relatively, but not as well as being projected by the media. Yeah.
So, what about this promise of bringing all the black money back from tax havens? Has that happened? I mean, I don't think it has happened. There was talk about so many lakh crores, and all that was overseas, and all these guys will be. Why didn't they do that?
Money. Yeah, I shouldn't be doing this, but my book is coming next month on black money and tax havens. It is getting released by Westland, Tata Westland, same publisher. Now they have taken over by Amazon. So I would suggest all the followers of ours, this YouTube, they must buy the book. They need not read it, but at least they should buy the book.
No, I would like to make an appeal to my followers. You should buy the book and read it and discuss it and talk about it. And you let me know when it comes out. We'll do some interviews again on your book.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of funds are still abroad, and let us be very clear. We have not taken any serious steps in terms of bringing it back. The amount is estimatedly between around $1 trillion US. We can put it like that. And everyone is involved in this. Business people, political leaders, sports people, music people. You name one elite group in India, they are involved in that. So in that sense, there is a sort of a radio silence among all. Who would like to bell the cat? That's something, But I am sure the funds would come because of 2 reasons. India is now much more attractive destination compared to many other places where, you get in Europe or other places something like, 2%, 2.5% and other. India, if you just keep money in the fixed deposit, you get 6.5%, 7%. You don't have to do anything. So, as a destination, it is very attractive and reasonably stable now. Unlike the Nehru time and after Nehru what. Today there is much more stable, and our country can be. The reason is tax evasion in India is no confidence against the government. But illicit money kept abroad is no confidence against India itself. It's a treason, according to me.
Right.
But now the confidence on India is slightly improving. As you always point out, why it is improving? Because the Europeans and Americans are telling that India is doing well. See, Indians will never realize that we are doing well. It has to be told by a white man. If Wall Street Journal says that Bangalore is growing, I believe that. I sit in Bangalore, but that is immaterial. It has to be told by Wall Street Journal. So the white man is today telling India is one of the good destination and opportunity. And not only the funds, one important point, we have huge amount of pearls, gems, rubies, diamonds, and various type of murtis, the idols, which are also in the lockers of several of these tax haven banks, including Switzerland. I think that also has to be looked at. It's a huge amount of funds. One is the bonds and the shares and investments, another thing. Other is this. This is not adequately being talked about. Because many a time our old princes and the feudal lords and the Maharajas, they have all deposited there in the international, tax havens.
So
Yeah.
when you say there is money that should come back, one of the ways this money comes back is as FDI. It gets laundered through Mauritius. So this illegal money goes abroad, and some of it, when they want to bring it back, they clean it up as legal money and bring it back through some laundering services which clean it up, like Mauritius.
Participatory notes is a famous thing. PN notes, everybody recognizes that it is the way in which our own money comes back to us. And we are very happy that, so much foreign money is. It's not foreign money, it is our local money.
So even the FDI is not a honest barometer of foreign investment. It's actually a measure of dirty money going out and becoming cleaned and coming back.
Yes, it's not an average European who invest in all these things. There are a lot of post box companies in Luxembourg and in Cayman Island and other, through which the funds are routed, and it comes back to us, and we are very delighted that our own money has come back to us.
Right.
But the proportion which is coming back is relatively small. That is the important issue.
So do you feel that the super rich Indian billionaires that we praise and we deify them like they are gods and all that, they are our heroes, they are the symbol of our success, do you think that they really deserve that? Because I'm not sure that they are really Desh Bhakts who are really helping the nation, or if they are robber barons who've exploited, stolen and take the money off somewhere else. What do you think of that? What do you think of the glorification of Indians who are made money by other Indians? Do you think that's the right thing to do?
No, I think we have to distinguish to some extent the class of what you may loosely call the capitalist. It's not that all of them are meant to loot the country, and many of them are actually rooted to the soil. Many of them are actually doing a lot of charity work. Many of them have constructed temples, and they might not have paid taxes. That is a separate issue domestically. But they are involved. For instance, I know some business groups which are in Ekal Vidyalaya. They have started something like 50,000 single teacher schools in the tribal areas in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and other. So there are business groups. I'm again not talking about their paying taxes and they following government rules. That's a separate issue. I'm more talking about their interest in the society and our dharmic culture, and that is there. But of course, there are some groups which are, not very enthusiastic about and who accumulate and who want to keep some funds abroad, and that is mostly what you may loosely call the commission agent type of business people.
No, but if you look at if you look at the mainstream media is thoroughly unpatriotic and very anti-Indian culture. And they are big billionaire type people, some of these guys, and they are industrialists who also need media. Media gives them some kind of leverage over politicians because they can make or break a politician's image. And so in exchange, they can get protection from their own corruption. So this nexus of government, media, corruption, this is some sort of a front for industrialists who are not really honest people. What do you think of that?
You are absolutely correct about it. Much of our media is, particularly what you may loosely call the mainstream media, as it is known as.
Yes.
It is spin and skin. That's all.
Yeah.
As much skin as possible you show in order to sell your product and spin the stories. And many of them are sponsored items and not. But one good development has taken place, and you also have to some extent contributed to that in terms of the social media.
Right.
Some which has come, which is not easily amenable to all the type of these, and many a time this mainstream media is getting exposed also, and there is a good amount of business people who are fly-by-night operators and other things, right? But slowly, but surely there is a stress on probity in public life. I think I would definitely appreciate our current PM, whatever people are criticizing another thing. He is trying to establish some amount of probity in public life. In terms of, for instance, he is not taking lot of these media people along with him. He is not creating a coterie. Whatever be the criticism, he is trying to, create a culture of, what probity. I think that is very, very important. I am not telling that everything is honky dory, but the attempt to create a culture of probity, I think, is very important. And there, I think your point is very valid.
Yeah. So, what do you, but we didn't complete the discussion on demonetization. What do you think has been the impact of demonetization? What did it work? I mean,
the final numbers have not yet been released. The Reserve Bank says it is still counting. I can't believe.
I can't believe.
Counting is a very, very simple procedure in Indian banks at least. Anyhow, there are still one or two benefits which are well recognized. Is one is the Kashmir jihadis, these these radical Islam groups in Kashmir. Their funds have got dried up post demonetization. Because you can't give the old notes in order to carry out stone pelting or to do the jihadi work, because there is a well-knit insurance which is taking place. If you go and attack somebody and if you get your family will be paid so many lakhs. Now that has got, and that is why they are looting banks. These looting banks was not taking place earlier. Now they are significantly looting the banks. That is one. Second is the women trafficking has also got reduced. There is a huge amount of trafficking used to take place from eastern part of India, and the West Bengal and northeast and other things to other parts of India. This trafficking is common and that is cash based. So that has also come down. The third is political corruption to some extent used to involve only larger denomination currency because of the carrying cost. If you see the Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh election time, most of the currency captured is of 1,000 and 500 rupee notes, because carrying 10 rupee note is not easy. You have to carry in several vans and other things. So to that extent, it has come down. The last but not least is, as what you may loosely call the collateral benefit, is slightly more number of people are using this digital economy now in terms of credit card or in terms of payment. I won't say it has revolutionized or anything, but even small shopkeepers I find are now using some of these technology, which again over a period of time will be a very useful thing. See, demonetization per se is a very good policy, but as in India, I think you know that we have a course in accountancy called Commercial Banking and Practices. Nowhere in the world you will have a course like this. There is another course called Banking Law and Practices. All over the world, there is only a course called Banking Law. So we have Banking Law and Practices. That means we recognize that laws are different than practices. So the demonetization as a principle, as a policy, is very, very good. Unfortunately, we did not succeed in implementing it correctly. For instance, large number of these ATMs were to be recalibrated, and we have hundreds of issues on that. That is what you may loosely call the last mile problem. Actually, that is the first mile in India. It's not a last mile. That is that. So we have good policies, but at the ground level, there are massive amount of issues. In spite of all that, there are a couple of collateral benefits I mentioned to you, which has taken place.
So, but don't you think that going forward, the 2,000 rupee note, there will be black money in that 2,000 rupee note now? Because
definitely, you see,
if I want to sell you a property and understate the value, so that I pay less tax, I want to collect the money in cash. I'll collect it in the new note. There is nothing magical or superior about the new note compared to the old note. Do you agree with that?
Correct. You are right. Actually, it's demonetization is not a permanent solution.
Yeah.
Actually, there are some suggestions given which government has not yet thought about. Perhaps we must introduce a law where holding cash beyond a point is a crime. Holding cash, not transaction. If they hold 10 lakh, that is enough actually. An household may not definitely require more than 10 lakh. assuming even if they require 10 lakh, Indian rupee I'm talking about. So, if you hold anything more than that, that should be made a crime. This regulation was there in many Western countries post Second World War. Today, in US also, who is holding maximum cash? Mostly the drug peddlers and other things. Most of the other people have started using the credit card and other type of. So we must introduce a law where holding cash should be made into a crime. Then you will see the significant impact on a continuous basis about this issue of domestic black money. That won't solve the international black money. Domestic black money, I am telling.
So what is your view on the GST, the whole GST controversy? What do you feel of that?
As I told you, the course is banking law and practice. So I am waiting for July 1 because, on paper it's a good thing. Except, of course, India is the only country which is introducing a GST with 4 different rates. All over the world, there is only one rate which they put it, 7% or 5% or whatever it is. We have 4 different rates and we have 29 states. The fundamental problem, let me be very blunt, is how the bribe money will be shared between the state level sales tax collectors and the babus and the officials and the central level excise duty collectors. Huge amount of money is getting collected by these people for their pocket, not for government of India or state government. Now what happened is under the GST, some powers of the state level people may be reduced. And that is not going to be an easy task to deal with. So again, let me say, passing these type of laws, we go on debating. We have we have an Anti-Dowry Act, right? And that we have several states have got restriction that beyond some number of people can't eat at weddings. So many type of laws and regulations are there. Most important for GST, according to me, is we must see how it is operationalized, how it is done at the final. My vegetable vendor, how it is going to be impacted. My agarbatti seller, how it is going to be impacted. My local provision. This is what the important thing in our context is. Passing laws at Delhi is of, according to me, not much of a use. Let's wait and see.
So what you're saying is that
very serious doubts about implementing this.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the whether GST will work or not is not a question of the theory and the laws, but the practices, and the way the practices will be is unknown, because there are too many moving parts, so many people with vested interests. Some will win, some will lose, and how will there be a new equilibrium of the practices? The practices will reach a state of their own equilibrium after some experimentation and some negotiation. Right?
Yeah,
and
hopefully that equilibrium is better than today's disequilibrium.
Right?
Yeah.
But the law changing from one law to number 2 is not the effect. A to B is not the point. Is the practices, how they change from X to some unknown Y, we don't know.
See,
so that's your point.
I will tell Rajiv, you have been in US, you have seen Europe. When a law of this nature is passed, the entire number of people in Congress will be full practically in the house, inside the house or in the Senate. In India, you will hardly find 5 to 6 fellows sitting there, the so-called quote-unquote lawmakers. Yeah. All are empty benches because they know that let them pass any type of law, we will tackle it at the floor level or rather at the ground level. This is the approach of all these, So I think we take a lot of time and effort in debating about a policy or about a law. Not a bad thing, but in US and Europe, let's be very clear, once a law is passed, after so much debate, everybody feels that they have to obey that law. They may not like it. They may put placard and they may still want it to change. But as long as the law is in the book, they would like to follow it. Our approach is not like that.
That is because India does not have robust institutional mechanisms to implement laws. That is the,
Very
a lot of it depends on emotions and how you feel and informal and whatnot and all that. Okay. So now
Not
I have
only that,
a,
drive plays a very large role in all these things. The ability to overcome loss is based on bribes. This I always maintain. Whom to whom bribe, we pay. So we can, we can buy. How does it matter, right? That approach.
Yeah. Recently I came across a gentleman called, his name is Anil Bokil from Pune, who in 2000 wrote a book saying that not only should there be demonetization, but all of paper currency should be removed, and all the income tax, all taxes can be replaced by 2% bank transfer tax. He was being interviewed on National Public Radio, NPR, in the US, and so I got hold of him, and I'm going to have an interview with him also. And I've looked at some of his books and so on. Now, he presented his argument to then Chief Minister Narendra Modi in, I think, 2013. He presented his argument, and Modi told him, according to him, that if I ever have a position, if I ever have the power to implement it, I'm going to implement it. So he had a lot to do as a originator, as a person who created this kind of a concept of demonetization as far as India is concerned. Now, he wanted not just demonetization, but more than that. He wanted removal of all income tax, GST, everything, all of that gone, and replaced with 2% bank transfer tax. 2% bank, every time you transfer money in the bank to somebody. So if I give you 100 rupees, you will actually end up getting 98. 2 rupees gone to the government. Now, Baba Ramdev during the campaign made this into one of the campaign issues. He promoted this because this same gentleman also went and talked to Baba Ramdev. But somehow that whole idea went away. Nobody knows why. I'm going to ask him why he went. But what is your thought about this 2% transfer tax as a way to substitute all the other taxes?
See, one is, I think if I am right, you are talking about that group called Artha Kranti, or,
Yes,
I think
he's the head of that group. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, you see, this whole thing has got several dimensions. National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, which has done exhaustive study on various times from 1970s on the black money in India, which is a Delhi-based institution. They were asked to look into this entire issue, and they have sent me also some of their finding, and they have done a very reasonably a good job about one dimension is, it is not very easy to, it's one thing to say abolish income tax, but income tax is, let us be very clear, is equity based. Larger income people supposedly, to some extent, pay larger taxes compared to, and all so-called indirect taxes are regressive because it affects all of us in the same fashion. Whether Ambani buys a soap or I buy a soap, both of us pay the same level of taxes. That is one issue. Second is, if I recall correctly, this institute found that 2% may not be adequate. It has to be 6 to 8% in order to have the current levels of what one can call revenue generation of the government. And if it is going to be 6 to 8%, it's not going to be very easy task. Third is, what we can attempt is, we can reduce the income tax. Currently it is of the order of 33%. Maybe attempt it at 25% or something. And try this out for 0.5% or something, this transaction based taxes. Because all transactions do not take place through the banking system. Lot of transaction is between you and me directly, in Indian context at least.
No, but his idea was that there will be no cash left. There will be no currency note. It will be only 100% digital economy. The only currency left will be up to 10 rupee note, some small amount of money. Yeah. But anything serious will have to be done through Paytm or something like that.
See, we have still a long way to go. Let's be very clear. We have something like 73,000 bank branches in the country, all banks put together. And we have another 85,000 ATMs, and a quarter of them doesn't work most of the time. So it's good to talk in terms of completely, having a what one can call zero cash type of situation or lesser cash. It's not going to happen at all. That is most important. And bank transaction tax will affect all people equally. That is the issue. It is not going to make richer, give relative. See, when you say income tax, basically what you have slabs. People who are relatively less earning is supposed to pay lesser or sometimes never. If I am having in India today some 2 lakh income or something, I don't have to pay any income tax at all.
But isn't it true that only a very
kept in mind?
But isn't it true that a very, very small percent of government revenue comes from personal income tax?
Yeah. Not anymore. Now, actually, really something like 5 million, 50 million people are covered in India actually, and another 9 million is added recently because of the demonetization impact. It's not a very, because we have something like 250 million families, approximately I'm talking about 250 to 60 million families. Of that, agriculture income is excluded out of income tax by law. If you are earning agriculture income, you don't have to pay any tax. One of the leading political leaders' daughter claimed she earned 100 crore Indian rupee out of 10 acres of land and got exempted from paying any tax on that 100 crore. 100 crore is some 1 billion Indian rupee. Anyhow, so agriculture is excluded. In which case, out of 250 million, roughly 40% are agricultural families, right? So 100 million will go. 150 million families are remaining. And most of the families are having what one can call homemakers in India. Except in urban India, all other India, it is only single person earning. The wife is typically a housewife. Out of 150, now something like 50 million is, that is 30% is actually income tax covered today. So the logic was a couple of decades before, only 3% is covered or 2%, which is not true. Huge amount is covered today under the income tax thing. And of course, agriculture, should it be taxed or not, is a separate debate by itself. So again, income tax itself is not a small portion of the government revenue.
No, but
today
not the number of people who are paying income tax, but in terms of rupees.
The amount also is how much not is any small thing. It is actually the direct and indirect taxes. If you are comparing, it's hovering around 45, 55 in that range only. Still, indirect tax is very large. Obviously, in India, like tobacco or petroleum and other things are all huge amount of indirect taxes. But direct taxes are also now compensating or climbing up actually.
Yeah.
So, but one important point we should not forget is direct taxes are based on equity principle. All indirect taxes are regressive because it affects all group of people in the same fashion. What we can do, this is what my suggestion was to government at that point of time, is reduce income tax and introduce this transaction tax at a very small level and see the impact. And do surgical attack on Pakistan, but not internally in economics, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to also ask you, in India, the latest trend is American think tanks working in India. American think tanks offering advice on health and economics and business and whatever, all kind of things. And of course, starting out as very patriotic topics, how to improve the water supply or how to solve this disease or whatever. But this is a way to get their intellectuals placed and located in good, powerful positions. Some of them have brought in sons and daughters of powerful Indian politicians. People in the Indian government, military and national security, their children brought into important positions. Some of them brought to the United States and given Eisenhower Fellowship and very, very prestigious ways to build up their brand and also brainwash them in the process. So this young crop of very elitist, highly educated, Ivy League type Indians is in the country in very important role. Do you think that's an issue? Because this has happened before. In the 1800s, the British trained Babus to do this. The Bhadralok in Bengal, we had that problem. So is this the beginning of a whole new recolonization in a different, more sophisticated style?
Yeah, you are, how to say it, like Musharraf would say, you are 400% right, right? It's not, see, because he was weak in mathematics, that's the only reason, there is no other reason. So, you see, our umbilical cords are tied to the West. We say look east, but our neck is turned towards West. That's very, so, what you may loosely call, genetically we are wired to the West. I lightheartedly say, a white plumber from New York will be listened to more carefully in Delhi on Indian economy than a professor from IIM.
I know that. That is how the case. I face this a lot. Talking about all the civilization and culture and traditions and all that. All they have to do is put up some white guy, and then everybody will walk out of my room and go to his class. And then even if the guy learnt it from me, even if once upon a time he worked as my intern, even if I actually nurtured him, brought him up, he'll actually be considered a bigger, more powerful guy than me, because we have an inferiority complex, a very serious inferiority complex.
I think you only, if I recall, you only mentioned once, interestingly, that the top CEOs of Indian, some of the IT and other companies would give time and interview thing for white people.
Yes.
Much faster.
Yes.
And preferably white women. The more faster, within a day or within few hours.
Very quickly.
So
what do you think is the?
We are tied to the West.
So why do you think that even the new government, while saying they're very patriotic to our Dharma civilization, is unable to get out of this kind of a mode of this inferiority complex and this looking up to the West and really in awe of them? Why is that so? Why do you think this is a disease so deep in our culture we can't get rid of it? And the danger of the think tanks infiltrating like Trojan horses is not appreciated.
You are absolutely right, actually. You see, it will take, according to me, it will take a couple of generations to go. It's not very easy. You have to use the dry cleaner so many times in order to get it back in time. Because genetically, I think we are wired. In the sense, a white man, because you see all the rationality comes from white man, the scientific thinking comes from the white man, the way in which we have to live comes from him. You see, you look at all the research in our universities, it is typically taking the models of the West and testing it under Indian conditions. That's all. We never try to model Indian situation. We use those models and then use H0, H1 hypothesis. Statistically, we try to disprove or prove. And then you say, what is working there doesn't work here, or what is working there also works here. That's all. We are, very unfortunate, but we are totally, I think what has happened is, particularly the Americans are very clever. From the 50s and 60s, we are not realizing they have outsourced reproduction to India.
Yeah.
As one professor told me nicely, you create a brilliant, culturally obedient and nice youngsters to go through IITs and other things. We will take them. That is a much easier than producing in US and struggling hard to bring them up and all these things. Within India also, if you say that you got a Ford grant or you got a grant from the Heritage Foundation, or that's if I say somebody says I got a grant from Infinity Foundation, they are not very. It's okay, But did you get it? No, I'm not being.
I know. That's how it is.
Our whole approach toward things is significantly, but hopefully it will change. I am very, very confident about it.
Do you feel that the management team in government, after, other than Modi himself, who's very brilliant and competent, other than that, do you feel that there's a good management team, or are they sort of mediocre people? I mean, not being corrupt is not according to me, that's not a qualification. There are no scandals and they are not corrupt. Okay, I like that. I believe that is generally the case. But in terms of efficiency, competence, being really smart, being able to think big and act locally and, follow through, all of that.
It's not.
I don't see that.
Much of it is outsourced to international agencies. That is the issue.
Yeah.
Much of whatever you want to think big, immediately you bring in, either KPMG or Ernst & Young and all those, World Bank and IMF, and they come and think big. So that is the issue, actually. A lot of domestic talent is neither nurtured nor encouraged. That is what is very, very important and critical.
Yeah,
that is another decade.
Yeah, that is how you build institutions. Instead of just a few random individuals who are brilliant, you need to build institutions. And
very important.
We don't have.
Unless we build institution, our society cannot be sustained actually.
Yeah. So
over the long run.
We don't have good top-class Indian think tanks, for example, world-class Indian think tanks. Either the thinking is being imported by these NGOs, they're bringing foreign thinking, or the foreign think tanks are coming to India and setting up their shop, or we are sending our young people overseas to study those things in their model and bring it back. Yeah. We have not done a good job of creating our own intellectual apparatus and intellectual institutions. And the Modi government, I don't know what I don't see any initiatives either. Once in a while they have some Sammelan here and there, but Sammelan is not what we're talking about. To create knowledge
sustained effort like yours is most critical.
Yes.
I would say, definitely, because at least thousands, more than that I am sure, lakhs of youngsters are being molded by you. Molded in the sense of being awakened by you in terms of your efforts. No, like this, so many efforts are required, and government should be more facilitative for these processes.
Yes, government should help us.
Important. Government need not do anything other than that. Just facilitate this process.
Yes.
It will grow by itself. It can be nurtured.
Yeah. And it's not even a question of very big money we need from them. We need them to actually decide strategically that, okay, these guys are good. They are not part of the party or part of the government officially, but they are helping us. They are doing our job. They should think that we are actually doing their job.
Yeah. 100% you are right actually. It's not the funds. It's a question of creating the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Creating a system.
Right.
Which which respect these type of people,
right,
and these type of ways in which institutions can be built.
Yes.
Actually.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Professor Vaidyanathan, for a wonderful conversation, and I want people to know that Professor Vaidyanathan is on our advisory board of Infinity Foundation India, making a great contribution. Today we've had this in public, but we're having many private dialogues also. And he and I, we are co-authoring a book also with one or two other people. Hopefully we'll get it out soon. And I want to thank you. Every time I have this conversation, my followers love it, and I think they love this one also. And I'm going to be in India probably in the next 2 months, and then we'll meet again.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Rajiv, thank you very much. And again, of course, I am a devotee of Lord Ganesha. I really pray to Ganesha to give you more strength and give you more, fruitful and productive year in order to carry out your endeavors and build a new society and a new India. Thank you very much, Rajiv.
And thank you very much, Professor. I wish you good health and success in your retirement, and we'll continue working together as fellow travelers. Namaste.
Sure. Namaste. Right.
To help me, you can do two things. You can go to the subscribe button on my YouTube and subscribe. We need more subscribers there. Secondly, I get lots of emails on people saying, how do we donate? How can we help you? you go to rajivmalhotra.com or you go to infinityfoundation.com and you can hit the donate button. You can donate in dollars. There are different ways mentioned. If you want to donate in rupees, there is a column called Infinity Foundation India, and you click that and there are instructions on how you can donate in India.